Welcome to Computer Retro Bus. In this episode, we are going to compare Windows XP with Windows 98, but this time with Windows XP minimum specs. Last time I did this, the results were close, like surprisingly close. I couldn't believe it. But a lot of feedback I got was that the system was very powerful. It was pretty highly spec'd. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut it back to a system that was really fast for Windows 98, but was more minimum for Windows XP. Let's see if Windows 98 was lighter and faster. So again, to keep it as fair as possible, we're using the exact same hardware on both operating systems and also the same driver versions. So we can really see the difference between the performance in the operating systems themselves. This is a Pentium II, 233 megahertz. It's got 128 meg, but I'm going to drop that down to 64, and I'm going to use, now a TNT would be probably the best card. I don't have a TNT, however. I do have a TNT II M64, which the performance-wise was pretty much the same performance as a TNT. Even though it was a TNT II, it was TNT II in name only. These cards are everywhere, by the way, easy to find. You know, it was one of those things that everyone thought they were buying a TNT II, but you know, it was really cut down, castrated version of the TNT. It had half the bus width of the TNT II. But what we need it for, we just need it to perform like a TNT, so it's all good. So let's say you had this system in 98, you know, you built a ripper of a gaming system, it was a beast, then you held on to it, and then the year 2001 came along and Windows XP was released. Now, should you have upgraded to Windows XP or should you have stayed with 98? The answer to that is what we're going to find out today. So looking at the two operating systems, we have Windows 98 second edition. That was released on June 10th in 99. The requirements are pretty low. 4860X 66 megahertz with only 16 meg of RAM, pretty much the same as the original Windows 98 release. But we moved to Windows XP, released about 2 years later, and the requirements do jump up quite steeply. We're looking at a 233 megahertz processor with 64 meg of RAM, which is exactly what we have in our system today. All right, so let's get this bad boy open. So I currently actually have a Voodoo, 3DFX Voodoo Banshee in this. However, it's really hard to find Windows XP drivers for this. It's a nightmare, and especially trying to find the same version. I just couldn't find any. So that's why I'm switching it to the TNT II M64 for today's test. It'll just allow us to be a bit more neutral, whereas the Voodoo, finding the right Voodoo drivers, good luck. Okay, so I've got 128 meg of stick in here. I'm going to change that to a 64 megs. Okay, so here is our test system. So I've changed it to 64 megabyte RAM here. 64 was the minimum, 128 was recommended. The minimum also is a 233 megahertz CPU. It can be a Pentium MMX, or it can be a Pentium II. So we're giving a bit of a, we'll go Pentium II, 233 megahertz. So for the video card, we've got that TNT II M64. Just got an SD card, ID to SD card reader here, network card, and also a sound card. Just got an ISA ESS sound card. I use this primarily for Windows 95 and DOS gaming, so hence the ISA sound card. But yeah, so I think this is a pretty good representation of the 1998 PC era. So we'll begin by installing a fresh copy of Windows 98 second edition. Got my boot disk in. So here we are with our 64 megs of RAM. Pentium II at 233 megahertz. All right, this, okay. Things don't always go to plan, do they? That M64 card is a real dud. It's just been giving me absolute hell. Just giving me signal errors, issues, just will not let me load, install Windows. So we're changing our plan. We're gonna go to the ATI Rage 128 Ultra. So similar card, similar error, pretty much came out at the same time. So you know what, I figure it's just as good as a substitute. This is the type of stuff it's giving me. So I can't really install Windows, it's just, so yeah, this is way too unstable. We'll get the ATI card in there. Serves me right, really. It was an untested card. You always assume these things are gonna work, but no. So I'm gonna swap these over and get to installing these operating systems. My God, it's been an absolute nightmare. But you know, this is how it is with these systems, isn't it? It always looks great, like everything goes to plan on the videos, but believe me, it doesn't. Sometimes it's an absolute nightmare. We'll get there. Okay, so we've got the ATI in there. Let's see how we go. Okay, looking much better now. Oh, thank God. All right, we continue with ATI. So I'm using the exact same version of the drivers, which is version 6.59, which is available for both Windows XP and Windows 98. Okay, so now let's get onto some comparisons. Right off the bat, it's quite a bit of a surprise actually. Here we are with 3D Mark 2000 and they look very similar still. This is a huge surprise to me. I really expected Windows XP to be struggling a bit with the minimum RAM, but it's very similar. They are absolutely neck and neck. Maybe there's one frame in it towards Windows 98, but again, nothing dramatic at all. So far, it's really looking similar to my last test. Here we go with the Adventure, and the Adventure is the same. There's one frame in it, 1 or 2 frames towards Windows 98. It doesn't get any more dramatic than that. It is very similar, which is very surprising. I did not expect this. I really expected a more clear-cut advantage when looking at the frame rates. The fill rate is, again, it's very similar. There's 1 or 2 frames in it. It's interesting with Windows 98 that frames just flicking between 40 and 42, but again, it's so close. The only difference I saw was this bump map actually, where we saw 45 to 32 in Windows 98 favor. But apart from that, it was all similar. If you look at the final scores, we've got 763 to Windows 98 and 672 to Windows XP. That actually surprises me. I thought it would be even closer than that. The frame rates look so similar. It's a little bit of difference. Nothing majorly significant. So now moving on to Unreal. This is the Unreal Gold version, and we can start seeing some serious differences here now. Windows 98 does have quite a lead. Sometimes it goes to double the frame rate. So Windows XP is dropping to 15 and Windows 98 is maintaining 30. But yeah, we can really see quite a difference here. It sort of fluctuates between 50 to sometimes 100% increase in frame rates. So yeah, we can sort of finally see a bit of a difference and see that Windows XP, maybe that memory is affecting XP's performance. But yeah, it is definitely noticeable now. Okay, next we'll try Colin McRae Rally. So we can see right off the bat here again, quite a bit of difference. Windows 98 is significantly ahead. We're talking, at least 5 frames. Sometimes it's doubling the frames. When your frame rates are this low, 5 to 10 frames makes a big difference. Especially when it drops down to those single digits, it really becomes a slideshow for Windows XP, making it very difficult to play. Whereas Windows 98, again, while not the greatest, it is quite a bit different, quite a bit improved. Yeah, often you can see the frame rate doubling. So, I see a 7 on one side and a 14 on the other, or 8 on one side and a 16 on the other. So, yeah, quite a bit of difference on this one. I mean, that's 100% increase. Moving on to Quake III Arena now, and right away we can see Windows 98 again has a visible lead. Looking at the time demo results, we can see that Windows 98 gets pretty much 20 frames per second, while Windows XP is around 14. Again, that is pretty significant. That's around 33% increase for Windows 98 in the frame rate here. Okay, so let's have a look at Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. I love this game. Tells the same story we've been seeing throughout the real world tests. The Windows 98 is always ahead by, we're looking at about at least 5-6 frames most of the time, but it does shoot up to about 10 frames difference sometimes, which is quite a bit when you're looking at these sorts of numbers. Yeah, really interesting. It is more apparent in the real world games compared to that synthetic benchmark in 3D Mark 2000. It looks so much closer. Okay, now let's finish it off with Unreal Tournament. And no surprise, it's pretty much been this the whole way through. Windows 98 is faster from between, looks like 30 to 50% improvement in frame rate by using Windows 98 instead of Windows XP here. Which is makes a big difference when you're playing 10 to 15 frames per second as opposed to 25 to 30. Yeah, you'll really feel it in a fast-paced game like a first-person shooter. So yeah, Windows 98 would definitely be my choice here. Okay, so there it is. It was a very interesting mixed result. Mixed, I only say that because the initial 3D Mark really had me confused. I was like, wow, this is actually going the same way the first video did. I'll put a link up here to the first video so you can check that if you haven't seen it. But you know, with the higher spec, the first machine that I did it on was a Pentium III, 933 megahertz with 256 mega RAM, and it was really close. And running 3D Mark on this system was really close as well. So I thought, oh, here we go. We're going. It's going to be the same. But when we moved away from the synthetic benchmarks and went to the real world games, then we could really see quite the difference. And it was a pretty significant difference, you know, when you're talking at those sorts of frame rates. Going from 15 to 25 is huge. It makes a massive difference in your gaming experience. So, and a lot of those games, you can sort of see that 50% increase. Sometimes, you know, it's peaked up to 100%. Sometimes the frame rate doubled. So really interesting. I think it's pretty conclusive that you know, a lot of the feedback that you guys gave me after the first video, that it was really high spec. Try it on a lower spec machine and you'll see a bigger difference. And you guys are spot on. There is definitely a difference. You know, with a lower end machine for XP, you definitely would stay with Windows 98, and you would definitely see quite a performance increase by staying with Windows 98. There we go. Thank you for all the comments. Let's keep the discussion going in the comment section. I love the feedback that you guys give me and some of your experiences, you know, in that era, what sort of software you had, what sort of hardware you had. It's always great to hear about your stories and your experiences. So I hope you had fun watching this video. I had a lot of fun making it. It was great to revisit this based on your feedback and get some more you know, conclusive results. Thank you for everybody who's been buying me a coffee. Really appreciate it. If you want to do so, you can hit the link in the description. Otherwise, thank you again for watching. Really enjoying my YouTube journey with you guys. Let's keep it up. I hope to see you in the next one.